The Wii U is dead. Long live the Wii U, and welcome to the latest episode of Games Up Podcast. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and I am joined, as ever, by Lewis Crawford. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Just chilling.
Just chilling. Lawrence is still not with us this week, but he has returned from Germany, so we expect his imminent return to the show very, very soon, although it will be from Glasgow now. Who knows where he'll be next week? Maybe Iceland, maybe Reykjavik, maybe hell itself. How are you, Lewis?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Have you had a good week?
Stressful week.
Have you had
uni stuff?
Have you had the opportunity to play anything?
The answer should be no, but I've done a little bit of playing here. Mostly been playing Dota 2.
Dota? Interesting.
Yeah.
One of those really shallow, not time-consuming games, I see.
Yeah, you can talk with Overwatch.
All right, fair point. Season 4 in Overwatch kicked my ass. 10 placement games, 2 wins. I'm the lowest in the ranks I've ever been. I'm so unproud of it, I can't tell you. And speaking of Overwatch, that brings us very nicely onto our first piece of news this week. Every week we take you through some of the most interesting news in the world of video games, maybe some of the stuff that you may have missed, and we go from there onto a topic of the week. So let's get into it. The first piece of news this week is Overwatch officially has its first new hero since Sombra. The new hero is called Orisa, a robot Omnic designed by 11-year-old Effie Oladele, who we spoke about in last week's episode of the Games Up, who had a reveal trailer posted this week, but was teased in blog posts by Blizzard over the last couple of weeks as well. Lewis, why have you not played Overwatch yet?
I have a life. At least for the moment.
Fair enough. We'll take that one. The second piece of news this week was the announcement of Lord of the Rings Shadow of War. We had seen and heard rumours that Shadow of Mordor 2 was happening for a long while. You may remember quite a few months back, it was leaked on the, I believe it was a LinkedIn account or a CV on somewhere for a stuntman who was working on the stunt scenes. I believe it was for a Blur trailer that was being made for Shadow of Mordor 2. Well, we no longer have to rely on rumours. The game is confirmed. It's coming out in August, I believe. Yeah,
that's when I got it.
It's coming out in August. It's available to pre-order and preload now. Reminder, don't do either of those things. Preloading is more excusable. And yeah, Lewis, Shadow of Mordor is one of your favourites, certainly of this generation.
Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts on this?
I'm really excited for it because I want to see how much more they can improve it. I mean, we can hope that this is sort of like Assassin's Creed. You know, the first one was okay, and then they can refine it with number 2. Except that this was already a really good game. My hope is that they can do a lot more with it. I mean, it's probably the best Assassin's Creed game that's come out recently. You know, to put it quite brutally, and it is very good. Well worth picking up. But I'm very excited for number 2 in this series especially because they've done like the perfect like reveal trailer for it, you know, being like action. Look how exciting it's action. Scary stuff, action. You know, so it might be a pre-order.
Fair enough. Speaking of the best Assassin's Creed game to be released recently, you may soon eat your words as we saw leaked concept art this week of Assassin's Creed Empire, which is supposedly taking us back to ancient Egypt. And I don't know about you, but that concept art, it's got me excited again. I haven't cared about Assassin's Creed properly in a bit of a long while. I was in for Unity. I was really, really, really excited for it, but I just didn't handle and control that excitement, and by the time it came out, it was a bit of a bleh. Syndicate didn't do it for me. People know my thoughts on Black Flag and so on and so forth. This looks good, and it looks very interesting, and I really hope that it's their way of tapping into some of the religious, scientific, sci-fi kind of aspects of the game that, frankly, I feel we've been missing for many outings in the series recently. Would you agree?
Yeah, I kind of agree with the previous statements as well. I mean, Syndicate didn't really do it for me, although I know it was well received by most, I think. But in my case, I wasn't really a big fan of it. I want them to go back to kind of like keeping like a nice story, not just putting like challenges everywhere. And I think like Egypt's a great location, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much like history and stuff we could explore, and so much we can do. Very exciting.
Yeah, you said something there that actually has triggered a little thought in my mind. I really hope this is a step away from the traditional Ubisoft formula. I hope this is a step away from the watch points, objectives, challenges, side missions kind of way that Ubisoft had done things, because they kind of perfected it, which is why it's become so sort of stereotypical of their games. And I really hope that this is them branching out and doing something experimental, doing something different, much like they did in the case of the original Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it wasn't too bad in the second one, but yeah, since then it's been every Ubisoft game that's come out has had to have some sort of model of capture the tower. I understand why they do it, but yeah, I think like if we could find a way to maybe make it a little bit less like that. And I think like I'm just really excited for that location, really. As I said before, there's although it was done a little bit in bit of spoilers for Syndicate. Although it's done a bit in Syndicate. The only two zones that I really want to see in Assassin's Creed is this one, Egypt, and something like a World War. So I'm excited to see that one of them is coming, at least.
I think for a while I've wanted to see like feudal Japan. I didn't think about it at the time, but when they released the 2D Assassin's Creed Chronicles, actually India during the time of of various conflicts that have happened in that country looked like fantastic and fascinating. I think I'd like to see them do the American Civil War properly. Again, people know my thoughts on 3. It's a fucking shitstorm. But like, I think I would like to see them do that story properly. And I really want to see them do a proper future game. I really want to see how they turn the Assassin's Creed that I know and love, and maybe am clinging on to too much, in a futuristic setting and still maintaining those sci-fi sensibilities. But we will see. We can almost guarantee that the game exists at this point. It's been so leaked and so heavily rumoured that it would be very shocking if it didn't. I have some predictions about this, but you'll hear them closer to the time of E3. What I will say is I think it's fairly safe to bank on this being a big E3 reveal and a big it's out in 3 months reveal.
Really?
I think the game is probably ready to go.
That's cool. No, that's really interesting. I mean, I'm excited for it. I think the problem is, though, is it's a Ubisoft game, so I feel really, like Ubisoft has a certain, you have to be critical with them. They make good games, but like if you get too hyped, you know that like you know what you're in for with a Ubisoft game if you get too hyped.
Come on, dude, that's not fair. You know that they delivered on the promise of Steep.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I do say though, and I'm gonna now I'm gonna actually do the joke, give it some be serious. But Watch Dogs 2 was really good.
I've been meaning to play it for a very long time, and I just haven't had the time or the lack of backlog.
Well, you know how much I complained about it. You can have a look at my E3 talk on it. How much I complained about it compared to Watch Dogs 1 and how I liked Watch Dogs 1. I was wrong. Watch Dogs 2 is really good. And I don't care about its punky attitude. It's cool. Yeah.
So the final piece of news this week is a really big one, and frankly, it's one I didn't expect, and I don't think a lot of other people did either. Xbox this week announced the Xbox Game Pass. It's a $10 service that's on top of Xbox Live Gold, so you need Xbox Live Gold to buy it, and then you have access to it, which rotates out a cast of games every month. The idea being, much like Netflix, some games are added to it, some games are taken away, but there is a constant library of games available for you to instantly have access to, instantly download, and instantly play. It's going to be heavily featuring of their first-party titles. Halo 5, for example, is a big feature on the list when it launches, but it will have third-party support as well. And so the question is, what does this mean going forward? If Xbox is launching its equivalent of PlayStation now and may well be doing it better or maybe doing it worse, that remains to still be seen. What does this mean generally? But also, what does this mean for Game and GameStop and the more traditional kind of CD retailers that are still arguably a little bit in the past? Lewis, how did you respond when you heard about the news and sort of heard what it exactly was?
So, I mean, at first I was quite interested in it. The only thing that I think is quite interesting at the moment really is that if you go onto their website, if you go onto the Xbox website and look at this feature, it's surprising, I guess, the games that they put forward as like the big hitters. And I understand obviously that's partly because of this first party thing. But like, when the kind of top 8 of the 100 games that they're offering, apparently, I think it says over 100 great games to play. When the top kind of 10 that they're offering are sort of very small games. Well, there's Halo 5, and then there's kind of Saints Row, and then it's kind of Mad Max territory. And then everything below there is kind of like either indie or quite small or badly received. I'm kind of a little bit dubious about it, a little bit kind of like, it's hard to be excited. I wouldn't be paying £10 to play games that are probably £10 anyway. You know, for a lot of these. But admittedly, you know, this is kind of the first ones that they're talking about, and it could become a much better service as time goes on. My hope, to be honest, is that it would maybe push Sony into doing a little bit better. Because I think, like, at the moment, I'll have a look, but at the moment I'm fairly sure that both Xbox Gold games and PlayStation, the games that they offer monthly on the normal service, has been a bit lacking on both consoles at the moment.
This current month is quite good for Xbox. Xbox Gold games with Gold is Layers of Fear and Evolve, the Complete Edition, which is quite good. And then you get Borderlands 2 backwards compatible and something else. With Sony,
Sony's been bad for a long time.
Remember, it's Tearaway Unfolded and Disc Jam, which is like a kind of 2D Tronny Pong indie thing.
This is what I was saying. I know Sony's haven't been too great lately. I think. I mean, no. Well, I think that like any sort of improvement on one side means that it kind of hopefully pushes the other side to do something.
Yeah, true, very true.
And PlayStation Now is problematic. You know, they need to do something more with it.
Well, it's interesting, actually, that this news has come out this week, and I wonder whether maybe this was announced a little earlier than planned, because, of course, last week we saw Sony killing off a number of PlayStation Now devices. They took it off of many, many TVs. They took it off of many phones. They even took it off of the Vita. It's now limited to PlayStation consoles, and I believe some Sony televisions. And it's kind of interesting that a week after Sony either starts to kill or reposition PlayStation Now for a hardcore audience. Xbox kind of comes out the gate and says, boom, here's our offering on the table. I have mixed feelings about this, but I kind of like what it's suggesting. So I think that before we go anywhere else, we need to fix the problem of digital ownership. We need to fix the problem of what you get and what you are entitled to when you pay for a game digitally. Because I think this sets even more of a precedent for that, because you're not paying for these games digitally, but arguably you own the same rights to them as somebody who does. Arguably you own the same, you are just as entitled to use them, and if Xbox take them away, just like if you buy them, that's their choice. You are kind of screwed in that regard, and digital ownership is a problem in that sense. If I paid for Mad Max on day one, when it was £54 on launch on Xbox Live, then I have had that game for a couple of years at this point, but I have just as much ownership, and I don't own any of the files, I don't own the client, you can't own any of that because it's owned by the publisher. What you own is a license to use it, and arguably here what you're buying or paying for £10 every month is a license to use it. So it's interesting because this kind of supersedes digital ownership to some extent, but doesn't offer the same benefits as digital ownership. So I'm kind of fascinated as to how that leads into the future.
I think...
What I will say... No.
I think I'm fairly certain that... I would be fairly certain that you won't get long-standing access to them.
I think there will be some things you get long-standing access to, and I think it would make sense. I think actually the closest comparison to what's been announced is Netflix, and I think Netflix switches out stuff a lot, but things that stay there constantly is stuff that's originally made by Netflix, like The Orange is the New Black, The House of Cards, and I could kind of see that being the same here. Like, I imagine all three and the extra Halo Xbox One games will, Xbox 360 games backwards compatible, will be there. I imagine they will be there very soon, and I imagine they won't leave. Like, I imagine you'll be able to bank on there always being those Halo games there. And I'd argue that Halo 5 would make a lot of sense. I'd argue that the Gears games would make a lot of sense. I would argue that maybe some of the stuff that launched early for first party and Xbox One would make a lot of sense, because it doesn't make a great deal of sense for them not to take it away. They're not giving people reasons to play these games other than your own nostalgia for them. Like, genuinely, when was the last time anybody thought, man, I really want to go home and boot up Rise tonight, right? Like, nobody is thinking about, man, I really want to go home and play Rise Son of Rome. But if you're paying £10 to get Rise Son of Rome bundled in with all the games you want, there may be a night where, just like on Netflix, you think, I don't know what to play tonight, but that kind of looks interesting. One of the great things about Netflix, I think, is that it's not all Hollywood AAA. It's not filled to the brim with blockbusters, and as a result, you have to experiment with what you watch. I've seen so many great documentaries and original programs just through flicking through Netflix and giving something a go. And I hope that happens here, but that's a really good way for Xbox to push their more experimental first party and the indie games they invest in.
Yeah, I mean, it does say here that games that are on the service while you're subscribed to it will be discounted on the Xbox Store.
Interesting.
So it does seem like, to some level, what I'm going to imagine, to be honest, what they'll do, which isn't necessarily the worst idea, is that we'll see some games on there, maybe new games, or things that are fairly new, with like a 20% discount in the Xbox Store. But then, like, a game that, like, you know, it'd be like Witcher or something, where reasonably you'd have to buy it if you wanted to, like, actually complete it, because you would struggle in that month to do enough gameplay. Yeah, I think, like, with certain games there will be trouble, and I think they will, well, not trouble, but they will try to sell it, and it will only be on for like a short period of time, so that they can try and push people heavily into buying it properly. I think in some ways this might replace demos as opposed to necessarily full games. or necessarily like it being a full experience, because especially with this saying it makes it cheaper when you buy it on the store if you've already got it via the subscription service. That line worries me, to be honest with you.
So I mentioned before Netflix, and the idea that one of the great things about Netflix is discovering things. I think this could be a really powerful platform for VR when it eventually comes to Xbox. One of the great problems with buying into VR right now is there is no guaranteed content. There's Arkham Knight, there's the Arkham VR games, there's the Star Wars demo, there's loads of experiences, there's Job Simulator, so on and so forth. But there's no guarantee that there's going to be something there next month that you want to buy. Whereas I could kind of see this becoming a really, really good platform for Xbox to push experimental VR stuff and to minimize the buy-in for consumers, because it's $10 a month and you're always guaranteed, like the Halo games, for example. This could be a really, really smart way to push Xbox Scorpio. This could be a really smart way for Xbox to go, here's the most powerful console in the world, and here's the cheapest way to play games in the world. Have them both. It's a have your cake and eat it situation. And that's being very idyllic. That's being if everything works perfectly. But that could be what Xbox is positioning for, is kind of going hard on hardware and giving it to consumers in software.
Yeah, I think the only thing, it depends where it goes. I mean, from my position at the moment, I have to say that the games that they're currently offering are all games that you can get very cheaply, at least in the ones that are confirmed. There's sort of 10 games, some of which date from like more than kind of, when was Fable 3? More than like 5 years ago, at the very least.
Fable 3 was 2007, wasn't it?
Oh, no, 2010.
Oh, okay. Lego Batman's on there, isn't it? Lego Batman is like launched 360, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, there's many games there that are quite old. And not like top 10s, you know. Although Gears of War's there, in fairness. But yeah, it kind of worries me, because I'm kind of like, you know, if this is going to be an exciting feature, or is it going to be flogging games that are so cheap at this point that we can sell them for free?
I mean, even saying that though, $10 is like,
yeah,
I
true.
mean, that's going to be what, £7-8 in the UK. Dude, I'd pay £8 for 3 months of Mad Max. That's really cool.
Yeah, but you're paying £16 or whatever it is. You know, you're paying like this plus that. I mean, this plus.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But the thing is, personally, I kind of think of online charges as like a part of the console now. Like, PlayStation isn't the same without PlayStation Network. Xbox isn't the same without Xbox Live. Nintendo isn't the same without offline play. And so, and I just kind of consider Xbox Gold a thing you have to have. Like,
yeah. Well, this is this is the really sad thing about it, though. I mean, like, this could very easily have been like, oh, we're offering this collection of games for those people that have Xbox, you know, who have Xbox Gold. If it wasn't for the fact that we already lived in a marketplace where having Xbox Gold is like an automatic thing you have to do. See,
but I kind of disagree there, because I think that actually would get in. I think one of the things that Xbox Gold and PlayStation Network do really well is offer games to people, whether they are amazing AAA experiences. Project Cars last month were games were gold. Evolve now, whether they're really great experiences or stuff you'd have never ever tried before. There's so many little indie games that I've clicked download on because they're free and actually had a great time with them. And I think if you offer this kind of instant collection of games, you actually undermine the need for them to work hard on that, because, well, if you don't like game number 1, there's still 99 on offer for you. I kind of like the idea that this is being marketed as a premium service. We just need to see the premium content.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, like, in fairness, I mean, you're paying for, at the very least, games that are quite cheap, yes, at the moment, but And, you know, as I said before, some of them are sort of below kind of like rating 7, but they're still good games, you know. I mean, it's one of these things where they're games you would never pick up intentionally, maybe, some of these things.
Yes. Yeah, it's like minimizing the risk of playing them. Like picking up Mad Max, yeah, okay, it's £16, but it's also £16 and making that purchase worth it by playing it. Whereas here it's like, oh, you don't like Mad Max? Okay, go on to game number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you've not really lost anything.
Yeah.
You know, the more we've talked about this, the more I'm actually really in for this. This is a smart idea. This is a really great way to undermine the pre-owned market because they are giving it to you on their basis, but it's a really smart way to make you want to play new things and be willing to take a risk on developers. I'm liking this more and more.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
You mentioned about Nintendo and their no network connectivity thing.
Yeah, offline play.
Offline play. What's going on with the Switch? Because from what I understand, like online isn't something that people know about yet.
The last I'd heard, matchmaking and all of that kind of stuff was being done through a phone app. And the reason Nintendo said for this, and actually the way they've said it makes a lot of sense. The reason they've said for this is because it doesn't make sense to have it built into the console because that requires some kind of constant internet connection to function. So I think basically Nintendo is banking on you using your mobile to some extent as a bit of a hotspot or connecting to the same source of Wi-Fi and using that as the sort of middleman to do all the connection. And actually that, personally, again, I'm kind of alright with that. Like if I'm buying the Switch, I'm buying the Switch because I want Zelda, Splatoon and Mario Kart. And if I have 2 of those games, I'm going to want to hotspot 4G and play it on a bus, play it on a train, play it on whatever. I think Nintendo could have done a smarter job of messaging it. I think they could have done a smarter job of making it clear why they've made this decision. But I think it makes sense for the actual function of the console. Yeah,
that's fair.
So, tell me, after our discussion, where do you sort of stand on the Xbox Game Pass? What do you think of it? Have we made you sort of rethink your stance at all? Or?
Yeah, I think maybe you convinced me a little bit about it. I mean, if it gives me the opportunity to play games that I haven't played before, which doesn't happen very often with me. But if there's a good library full of stuff, I think it will be interesting to see what maybe I can have a look at. There's so many games out there that are really good games that you just might not have played. And like a library of 100 games, there's going to be some diamonds in the rough, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I want to say there probably will be a lot of rough, though. You know, there probably will be quite a fair amount of Fable 3. But some other games in there that will also be pretty bad. So, I don't know. I think there will still be lots of games in there that are good.
Yeah, I would agree.
That'll make it worth it. Potentially. But I mean, the best way of doing these things is to not be the first person who buys it and just wait a couple of months and see if the service is still there and still in a good way.
Yeah, maybe, but then also, I don't know, somebody's got to take that plunge, and
it's going to be you. It's going to...
Maybe. You know what, for £7, I might be willing to give this a go and just see what it's like, because it'll be fascinating if it stays to see what kind of precedent it sets on day one.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But I think that wraps us up really quite nicely for our topic of the week. Do we think Xbox is going to kill hardware? Do we think Xbox is going to kill game?
Well, I don't know. Like GameStop's prices, apparently GameStop stock went down quite significantly when it was announced. So it definitely has the potential to. But I mean, in theory, so did PlayStation Now. You know, like you've got to look at these comparisons. I mean, I don't know. It depends, really. I mean, the problem is that like places that sell like used games do their best stuff on stuff that's just come out, and those are the ones that are probably not going to be on their service.
Yeah,
at least in
yeah.
the way that it looks at the moment. I mean, like, it would be the best place to release like exclusive 2-hour demo, play, something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if this is their EA access, you've got to imagine that there will be something like that. Like, you've got to imagine that as part of it, like, maybe there'll be a 30-minute Crackdown 3 demo, but for people who have the Game Pass, maybe there's a 2-hour Crackdown demo. And, actually, like, we were saying, whilst we were recording this episode, we had a bit of a sort of a blip that we've cut out. Where actually, like, it kind of dawned on me that I think what Xbox have done here is open the equivalent of a digital demo kiosk. Like, I think it's the equivalent of them saying, for a very small price, you get to try all of this stuff and kind of know what you're interested in and not. It really is Xbox minimizing the risk of purchasing or enjoying or investing in a game, which makes a lot of sense, especially with some of the kind of blowback that they've had on first party stuff like Rise, like where many people didn't play it, but many people had opinions, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So I don't know that Xbox is going to kill GameStop today. It's certainly not going to kill it within the next few months, and it's probably not going to kill it in a very, foreseeable future. But if they set a precedent here that works, and if PlayStation now rebounds as a result, and if Nintendo do something similar, which has been rumoured for a long, long time, especially with their SNES 64 back catalogue, this could be the first nail in the coffin of pre-owned games. And I'll be glad to watch that coffin go to the grave. Lewis, what will you be playing this week?
Again, probably shouldn't be anything, but I imagine I'm going to play a little bit, maybe a little bit more Dota.
Fair enough. I will desperately be trying to claw some ranks back in Overwatch to pretend that I am by any means passable at that wonderful game, and hoping to get my my hands on playing Orisa when she lands on the consoles, hopefully very soon. So thank you very much for joining me as ever, my friend.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been interesting. You've convinced me some things. You've convinced me about maybe Xbox Game Pass.
So last week I educated you. This week I've convinced you. Things are happening. Yeah. And thank you very much for joining us. You know that we really, really appreciate it. If you like what you heard here, please consider subscribing to the channel, because we're still putting these out every week and we intend to go on. We'd hate for you to miss any one of them. And whilst you're clicking on things that make you like and subscribe things, there is a Facebook page as well where you get to see all the stuff, and we post photos from trips we do occasionally and all that kind of jazz. So go on there. Drop that a like, maybe look at us on Twitter, subscribe to the show, all that jazz, and we will see you next week. But until then, the game's past. I mean, the game's up.